I'm going to jump ahead here, and I'm going to skip ahead to the middle of the book. And it's now the start of the holiday season, and Daniel is attending a dinner with his family. And this is the first time he's seen them since he's been in treatment, and they've always been suspicious of his life and activities. Also, at this point in the story, he's finally met and is involved with the woman of his dreams, Caroline. A couple of nights prior, she invited him over to have dinner at her mother's house. However, it turns out Caroline is married, and her husband, Ronnie, is a dinner guest also. So, not surprisingly, things went very, very badly. So Daniel is quite stressed, and in this frame of mind, he drives down to Carmel on Thanksgiving to meet his family. The drive down, chapter 24. The drive down to Monterey on Thanksgiving morning was wet, cold, and gray. Aunt Teresa lived on a ranch 20 miles south of Carmel. It was beautiful property with lots of trees, mountains to the east, 2 horses, and a vineyard that she had someone take care of for her. This dinner was going to be significant because my sister Abigail from Seattle was going to be there, along with Teresa's 25-year-old daughter Sarah and her boyfriend Dominic from New York City. Cousin Sarah meant a lot to me. I had known her since she was a baby. Teresa had her when she was 37 after 2 miscarriages, so it was a big deal for the family. Teresa's husband, my Uncle Thomas, was a drunk and died in a hunting accident in Texas when Sarah was a baby, but he was rich and left them loads of money and property, along with the money they already had from my grandmother. I used to hang out with Sarah when she was a little kid, visiting my family in L.A., taking her to places like Six Flags and the Farmers Market and Knott's Berry Farm down in Orange County. When I was up visiting in the Bay Area, we'd go to San Francisco and Oakland zoos. She was the sweetest thing in the whole wide world. She reminded me a little of the character Phoebe in The Catcher in the Rye. I felt this incredible need to protect her. Teresa's house fit perfectly into the miserable weather. It was a beautiful ranch house, but had a facade of grayish-brown, distressed wood that created the illusion of being all warped and deteriorated by years of fog and rain. I found the effect kind of cool. It was something you rarely see, but it deepened my anxiety and edginess. The thing that always kick-started my fear around family gatherings was when I'd pull into the driveway and see a bunch of cars parked and knew everybody was already there and settled in. It was like my world immediately became the center of attention as soon as I walked in the door. My lone consciousness versus the group. My brother Bobby opened the door when I rang. He had a scotch and soda in his hand. He gave me a one-armed hug and held up his drink in a form of camaraderie. He somehow equated my banjo and folk music with the Kingston Trio song, Scotch and Soda. I had never personally made that equation. Bobby's wife, Denise, came out from the back dining room and announced to nobody in particular, "Danny's here." "Hey, Denise," I said. We gave each other a kiss, and Bobby took my winter jacket from me. For the moment, I wasn't a drug addict, just a family member. I decided to savor it as best I could. I moved to the back of the house into the kitchen, where Aunt Teresa and Abigail were whipping up the potatoes and the yams. They both stopped what they were doing, left their spoons in the bowls, and one by one hugged and kissed me. Abigail looked me up and down and said, "So Danny, what on earth have you been doing up in the city?" "Nothing, looking for work and stuff. Things are really rough these days. Reagan and Bush threw us into a real recession, but Clinton will get us out of it, I'm sure of it." I realized as soon as those words came out of my mouth that I was dealing with a family of Republicans, so I added, "Or not." "I'd vote for the not," said Bobby as he came in behind me. "Danny's doing temp jobs down in the financial district, aren't you, Danny?" "Yeah, that and banjo. I'm making a lot of money playing on the street. I'm even getting a band together." There was a moment of frozen silence in the room. It wasn't so much about the music as it was about me. I'd been putting a band together for 10 years, and their patience was worn thin. This was the part Elsie could never understand. Even though she came from a Jewish family which undoubtedly had enormous focus on the Klan, she didn't have to constantly make up excuses to cover up being such a hopeless junkie. It was hard for me to reconcile my version of success in life, banjo, Caroline, artistic friends, etc., against my family's world of finance, law, and corporate ascension. The two worlds do not compare very well. "Well, that's good to hear," said Teresa. "We're all very proud of you." The room remained quiet. A door opened from the upstairs loft and a voice called out, "Is he here?" "Come down here, honey, and say hello to your cousin Danny," said Teresa. I heard the sound of feet clomping down the stairs, and then Sarah came through the kitchen door. "Daniel, how are you?" She gave me a big, tight hug and a kiss. She looked beautiful. Her brownish hair was cut just a little above her shoulders and parted on the side. She had the sweetest, most childlike smile you could imagine. One of her front teeth had a slight scar on it or something, which made the whole kid image complete. She was a baby sister I wish I had. When I looked up behind her, I nearly freaked. A guy who looked almost identical to Caroline's husband, Ronnie, walked in. I flinched and began shaking and acting paranoid and weird. Everybody was startled by my reaction and became uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. I blurted out, "Hi!" to him in a loud, overly friendly voice, which just added to the awkwardness of the moment. It was one of those moments that seems like it was never going to end. Finally, Sarah said, "Is everything okay, Daniel?" She had such deep concern in her voice it comforted me enough to get a few words out. "Yeah, fine, Sarah. It's so great to see you." Underneath the joy, I felt like I had just ruined my most sacred family connection. It sounds like a little thing, but I knew that when you flinch and act weird at the start of a family gathering, it just picks up steam and then becomes an item of gossip until the next reunion. I could imagine Sarah and her boyfriend discussing it every time the topic of family came up. "That cousin of yours is sure weird and talk like that." "I'm Dominic," said her boyfriend. "Let me fix you a drink, Danny," Abigail said quickly before I could respond to Dominic in some sort of normal manner. "Get him a scotch and soda. Ain't that right, partner?" Bobby said. Actually, I'll take a beer if you have one." Abigail opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle of Anchor Steam Christmas Ale and waved it at me excitedly like it was a sign from God that great things were around the corner for us all. She used a bottle opener to pull off the top and handed it to me. While Anchor Steam was a decent beer, local and everything, it did a coma job on my head whenever I drank it. Sierra Nevada, too. I might as well have been drinking Green Death from Renier. I was thirsty and nervous, so gulped it up pretty hard while standing there in the kitchen. And before I knew it, Abigail was handing me a second one. She seemed entertained by my thirst, but Teresa became alarmed. "Now, Danny, you know what happens when you start off like this. I'll be fine, I'm just settling in." Hey, let's all huddle up by the fireplace in the living room and get acquainted," Bobby said. Everybody laughed when he said that, but he was looking at me. I had the paranoid sense of something like an intervention coming on. My fear took on a life of its own and raced through my arms and hoisted the Anchor Steam to my mouth. I was totally out of control. Finally, I said, "Hey, Abigail, could you fix me a vodka cranberry?" "Teresa," she said, "do you have any cranberry juice in the house?" "It's down in the basement, honey." Bobby looked at me. "Well, I guess you got a little hike ahead of you." I was absolutely terrified to leave them all alone in the living room without me. It would give them a chance to talk about how weird I was acting. So I said, "I'll just have my vodka straight up." As Teresa led the family into the living room, she said, "No, Daniel, if you want to drink hard liquor in this house, you need to mix it with something, and drink it slowly, for God's sakes." I was shaking as I ambled back into the kitchen. I opened the basement door and charged down there as fast as I could. It was dark, and I was too much in a hurry to click on the light switch. Even with an overhead light by the stairs, I barely found my way to the refrigerator freezer. It was packed with beers and sodas and stuff, and I couldn't see into the back, so I had to pull bottles out and put them on a table. I was shaking so badly I dropped a bottle of Teresa's homemade white wine on the concrete floor, and it shattered. I was too scared and nervous to pick it up, so I left it there, and figured that if anybody found it, I would pretend I didn't know anything about it, and then offer to clean it up. Finally, I found a bottle of Ocean Spray in the back. I grabbed it and shoved all the other stuff back in the fridge and ran upstairs. I clutched the cranberry juice tightly. It was my lifeline to the safety of a glass of vodka. When I came into the living room, everybody was assembled quietly. The only open seat was next to the fireplace, and it almost seemed as if it was center stage. Abigail grabbed the cranberry juice from me and walked back into the kitchen to make me a drink. I wanted to yell, "Just a splash of cranberry," but was too frightened to say anything. The room remained quiet for a brief eternity, until Denise finally said, "So Daniel, how was the drive down here?" My chest was compacted. "Great," I said. "Pretty." "I love that drive," said Sarah. "I just love driving down here from the airport." She looked at her boyfriend. "Didn't you love it, Dominic?" "It's beautiful, man. Just beautiful." The room re-silenced itself until Abigail walked in with my drink. She actually had done a decent pour. We all sat together silently, stuffing our awkwardness behind a Norman Rockwell painting of American family coziness. Aunt Teresa broke the silence by saying, "I can't tell you how much it means to have you all here on Thanksgiving. Sarah will tell you, you're all like my own children." She glanced around at me and Bobby and Abigail. "And you too, Denise." Everybody laughed. Bobby gulped down on his drink and said, "Yeah, we feel like your children, Teresa, especially Danny. Don't you feel like a little child, Danny?" I smiled bravely and shrugged my shoulders. Here it comes, I thought. Denise jumped in. Oh, Bobby, Danny's doing the best he can out there. It's rough on the job front these days, isn't it? Really rough, said Bobby. If you're playing banjo all day or doing whatever else it is he does. What do you do, Danny? All of a sudden, the joking about scotch and soda slipped out the back door, and Bobby was in my face. You want me to take a wild guess? Now, Bobby, said Aunt Teresa. This isn't about Daniel. This is Thanksgiving, and we're all together. Abigail raised her glass. Here's to being together. We all toasted and took a gulp of our drinks. I was feeling much calmer once I understood this was not an orchestrated gathering to clobber me. In fact, I began to feel a little too calm. I realized there was a slight difference in the chemical reaction between methadone with ale and with other alcohol, and it was severely messing my head up. The only solution was more vodka. I got up with my glass without asking and walked into the kitchen. The vodka and cranberry bottles were out next to a full ice bucket with tongs stuck into it. I gulped down my drink quickly as I stood there, and then after tossing in a couple of ice cubes, poured straight vodka into the glass with a pinch of cranberry on the top. I drank half the glass and another gulp and then filled it again. My shakiness completely left me, but I was feeling dizzy. I went back to the living room and sat down. Teresa gave me a nasty glare when she saw my glass, but nobody else was paying attention. They were talking about the national health care plan that Hillary Clinton was trying to put through Congress. Nobody seemed to favor the idea. After listening to them go back and forth, I finally chimed in. Hey, you know, poor people deserve health care as much as the rest of us. The room became awkwardly silent again. Abigail stood up and said, oh my God, I need to get a can of beets from the basement. She got up abruptly and went off to the kitchen. I didn't think about it at first, but then remembered the broken bottle of wine. I wanted to jump up and stop her or offer a quick explanation before she went downstairs, but just couldn't bring myself to do it. About a minute later, we all heard a scream from the basement. Everybody stood up, and Bobby raced ahead of everybody into the kitchen and down the basement stairs. He came running back up, yelling, call an ambulance. Abby's had an accident, quick. I stood frozen next to the phone. Dominic looked around the room and saw the phone next to me and pushed me away. Moments later, he turned to me and said, what's the address here? I was still frozen, but Teresa jumped in saying it was Old River Road and yelled out a number. Bobby ran back downstairs, and I forced myself to go down there and see the damage I had caused. Abigail was sitting on the ground with blood pouring out of her wrist and palm. She had obviously slipped on the wine, and her hand was torn open by the broken glass. Bobby took a blouse that was hanging on a clothesline next to the washing machine and tore it up and wrapped it around her left wrist. She wasn't going to die or anything, but she sure as hell needed stitches right away. Once the tourniquet was applied tightly, he yelled to me to grab a hand towel off the shelf against the wall. Bobby began sponging the blood off her hand. It was a grotesque sight. We don't need an ambulance, Bobby said. We can drive her. Go call 911 and cancel. By this time, the whole family was crowded on the basement stairs looking at the situation. From everybody's vantage point, it looked as though Abigail had dropped the bottle of wine herself, and since she was dizzy and traumatized, there was not going to be an inquiry until she had stabilized and the panic subsided. Hey, my car is the closest, I said. I'll drive. Bobby hoisted Abigail up on her feet with one arm while his other hand held the tourniquet tight. It seemed to be working okay for the time being. I followed behind them as Bobby gently walked her up the stairs. The family followed us up the steps and out of the doorway while Denise walked ahead, opening the front door. All the while, Teresa was sobbing. The Monterey Community Hospital was about 20 minutes' drive into town. The car was silent. It was like a collective trauma. Denise sat next to me in the front seat, and Bobby held Abigail in the back. Finally, Abigail seemed to awaken and said, Daniel, did you drop a bottle of wine on the floor? I wanted to lie, to say something like it was broken when I got there. But that was not just as bad. After all, why didn't I clean it up or tell somebody? Yeah, but I meant to clean it up. That's why I rushed back upstairs, but then I got sidetracked in the living room. You stupid fuck, said Bobby. He was livid and ready to beat the crap out of me right there in the car while I was driving. Denise intervened. Bobby, you'll upset Abigail and get us all killed. Please calm down. The silence now turned outward from trauma to intense blame and disgust. I shaned my way up Highway 1 to the hospital in downtown Monterey and drove the car into the ER bay. All the while, I felt alone in the driver's seat like I was in solitary confinement. Bobby pulled Abigail out of the back, and Denise got out and helped him. I went and parked the car when I got into the lobby. Bobby and Abigail were sitting down at a corner desk with an admitting agent who had started the triage process. The ER was nearly empty, so Abigail ended up getting quick entry into the treatment area. I sat with Denise out in the lobby while Bobby stayed with Abigail. I felt like Denise was my only ally in all this madness. until she opened her mouth. You know, you're really breaking everybody's heart with your whole bizarre life. It's not like you're fooling anybody. What are you talking about? I'm having a real rough time out there. It's not easy in San Francisco these days. There's a lot of pressure and competition. But I'm getting experience as a temp downtown, and I think I'm going to make it. But my main focus is the music. Denise looked at me with such pitiful disbelief I couldn't say anything else to her. Finally, she seemed to calm a bit and said, "It's great that you play banjo, Daniel. It's quite an instrument to master. I would love to hear you sometime." "I'm sure. I'd love to play for you. I was going to bring it down here with me, but I forgot. I have a lot going on." Denise rolled her eyes, and I was about to say something when Bobby came through the electric door of the patient care area. "She's going to be all right," he said. "She's getting 2 sets of stitches. One set in her wrist and the other in the area on her palm below her thumb." "Oh, thank God," said Denise. "It looked horrible down there in the basement." "No shit," I said. "Hey, you fuck. If her insurance doesn't cover this, you're going to pay." "How's he going to pay, Bobby?" said Denise. "He doesn't have a job." "Then you're going to get a job and you're going to pay. I don't care if you work 12 hours a day at McDonald's. This shit's got to stop." "What shit? What the fuck do you care what I do with my life?" "Oh, you little asshole." "Stop it, Bobby. He made a mistake. Let it go. You're a drain on the family, especially Aunt Teresa. Can't you see what you do to her? And all the fucking money?" "Hey, it's not my fault Dad put her in charge of Grandma's savings bonds when he died. If I hadn't made the sacrifice and gone to a local college, I wouldn't have this money." "It wasn't a sacrifice, fuckhead. You couldn't get into any real college because you were stoned. Besides, I'm not talking about the savings bonds. I'm talking about the 2 complete overhauls of your car this past year and a supposed eviction from the apartment and the hate. And God knows what else she's bailed you out of." He used little quotation marks with his fingers when he said overhauls and eviction. "Hey man, those are real life crises. You little fuck. It's not just money, it's the emotional toll. For some stupid reason, she actually tastes a vested interest in your life." "Just stop it, Bobby," said Denise. "Let's just tend to Abigail and go home." We sat there for about an hour. Bobby and Denise talked casually about stuff. Work was difficult, friends were getting divorced, etc. They were both golfers and had a big trip planned to Mexico for the new year. I couldn't understand all the fuss about Mexico, or about golfing for that matter. A nurse finally came out and called Bobby's name, and 10 minutes later he and Abigail came out from the back of the ER. She had bandages on her hand. It didn't look too much worse for the wear, although it was obvious the trauma of the situation had taken its toll on her. The drive back to Aunt Teresa's was quiet, but before we got into the car I made sure to tell Abigail how sorry I was and that I meant to clean up the mess but was distracted. "I don't know what we're going to do about you, Danny," she said, and patted me on the head with her bandaged hand. I half expected Bobby to slap the hand away and say, "Don't encourage the little fucker," but he just ignored the exchange. When we got back to the house, Aunt Teresa, Sarah, and Dominic were waiting in the living room. They had all been drinking wine and watching a collection of old home movies that had been copied onto a VHS tape. It was a combination of clips from various holidays together, including my mom and dad when I was a kid. When I sat down on the couch, a movie clip came out of me as a toddler, on my hands and knees underneath the dining room table in our old house in L.A. I was trying to grab a little red ball on the other side of a wooden beam and kept banging my head. As I watched, I wondered why nobody had stopped filming to help me, but I guess they thought it was funny. Finally, when I started crying for help, someone reached in and pulled me out, and then they cut the camera.